public are advised that the meeting will be recorded and live streamed. Clerk, members present, please.
I have those, Chair.
Thank you. Apologies for absence.
Apologies from Councillor Baines, who has a Milton Keynes Council commitment this evening. Councillor Greenwood did make his attendance at the meeting. He responded with a tentative response. However, there wasn't a reason given for that, so I'm unable to offer any more information on that, Chair.
Okay, just for clarity, just before we continue, normally when the meeting starts, I normally get a line across the top saying that recording has started. I haven't got that on my screen.
Apologies, Chair. I can confirm that from this point in the meeting, we are recording. So for clarity, we're just in the process of going through agenda item 1. We've dealt with members present, and apologies for absence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Clerk. Okay, declarations of interest.
No, I don't think so.
I'll take that as a no. Just again, for clarity, Carla's now joined the meeting.
Chair, I also believe that Councillor Kendrick is just signing himself onto the system and will be joining us shortly as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, any members of the public present?
No, Chair.
I'll take that as a no. Okay, if we move on to item 2 then, please. Minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of February 2020, page 7. Council is invited to approve the minutes of the meeting. Starting with page 7. Page 8. And page 9.
We'll move to accept the 2 records.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. I'll sign those, Clerk, and get them back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm to the committee and also to our technical support, I can confirm that there is no issue whatsoever with the live stream on YouTube, and that's all working as anticipated.
Okay, thank you, Clerk. Carl, you got your hand up. Carl, your mic is turned off as well, I think.
Oh, it's not working.
Okay. Right, item 3 then. Public involvement, deputations, petitions and questions. I don't think we have any. Item 4. Landscape services update. Committee is invited to receive a verbal update from the clerk on the current delivery of the landscape services, including the challenges being encountered, how they are being addressed, and how the service will develop in the incoming months. In the coming months. Clerk. Hello, can you hear me, Clerk?
More importantly, Chair, sorry about that. Hopefully you can now hear me. The landscape service is now working on a 3-week cycle, and that's governed by the cutting requirement within the specification. So essentially, they start each cycle down in Winterhill and Oldbrook and work their way up to Willen and Wallstone by the end of the fortnight, actually. What they've changed the emphasis as the service has developed. So initially, as committee is aware, there had been little or no grass cutting carried out under the previous arrangement within the parish. So there was a degree of catching up to be made. They've done that in all the open wide spaces, and where the emphasis is now shifting, they're carrying out more extensive strimming work and also weed spraying. As I say, they can essentially, on most weeks, they can clear the 3-week cycle predominantly within 2. The 3rd week is being put to good use. The landscape manager has reported back previously and shown the images of work that's been carried out throughout the estates on sight lines, obstructions and the like, and that work is continuing. So we're trying to strike a balance between the continued need to carry out grass cutting, but we're very mindful that the shrub work in the winter programme that really wasn't carried out through the last winter period, that we start to make headroads into that. Now, it's interesting, this year we've received little or no comment about grass cutting itself, other than some of those areas that might be normally trimmed. So in previous years, we've had lots of comments where Milton Keynes Council got behind. That's not the case this year. But what people are commenting on is the fact that where there's overgrown shrubbery and the like, and as I say, that's a legacy of the winter programme from last year. So the team are using the 3rd week to start to make inroads into that. However, they're trying to do that in a programmed and strategic way, because to just randomly carry out reactive work as and when it comes in around the parish is not an efficient way to carry out the work, and it's not actually how it's going to benefit the majority of residents. So we are asking residents to be patient. We're explaining the plan that we're working to. I've just driven in through Oldbrook and Fishermead this evening, and it's evident that the plan is starting to work and it's starting to have a positive impact. And we're continuing to have positive comments back, Chair, but we are mindful of those areas that we need to catch up with in terms of particularly shrubbery work. So I'm happy to take any questions at that point, although I may not necessarily have the answer to specific locations or questions.
Okay, thank you, Clark. I've got a number of people with their hands up. If I take Carl, you had your hand up.
No, it's all right. It must have been caught up from another point, so it's okay.
Brian, you had your hand up. Have you taken it down?
Yeah, I didn't. I just joined the meeting. Sorry, I'm late. I've been working. Sorry.
Okay, thank you for that. David?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a series of questions really for Dominic on the landscaping.
David, can I stop you there? If they're specific to locations, I will not be able to give you the answer. That's something that you will need to take up with the landscape manager when he returns tomorrow. If there are overall questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Well, it's an overall question. It relates to sort of hedging, and I understand what you just said about catching up. But what my concern is, especially on some of the footpaths, we've got a lot of brambles coming over now, blocking the footpaths. And I just wonder when we're going to be able to deal with that, because obviously they're quite a nasty thing, and they're just coming out the hedges all over the place.
Yeah.
So I would just ask that question.
Okay, and in response to that, I would ask you and any other member that becomes aware of those specific situations to contact Daniel directly, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Tom?
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair. Dominic, I've had lots of people passing comments about the hedges. I keep on telling them that we're not allowed to cut the hedges until the end of September, October. Because, you know, we used to have a rule about the nesting birds. Is that no longer true?
Certainly the dates that you mentioned, Tom, are a little later than the reality is. I think that's a fair principle to work. That's something that would say that we wouldn't ordinarily carry out that work before the end of August. Under certain locations, it's possible to carry out limited work, but that's only after specific close visual inspections had actually been carried out to ascertain whether there were nesting birds there. So if nesting birds existed, absolutely, unless there was an immediate danger to the public, we wouldn't be able to carry out the work. Otherwise, small scale works might be possible.
Okay, Catherine.
Yeah, I've got to say that the Old Brook Green, they are doing that very well. I asked them to clear the woodland so that people can use the dog walk again, and they've done that, including an alleyway that goes between our Shackleton Place and the Green. And they go out twice a week litter picking on the Green, and I'm finding, as far as I'm concerned, with the people I talk to, they're all very happy with it.
Thanks for that, Catherine.
Brian, have you got your hand up?
No.
Okay, that seems like everyone's had the opportunity to ask the clerk. So we'll move on to item 6, which is the landscape equipment vibration monitoring system. Committee is invited to note that the vibration monitoring system has been installed with all operatives trained in its use.
Chair, you missed out 5.
The system is proving effective and
Chair.
ensuring operatives use the equipment staying within the recommended industry levels.
Chair, could we just
we
park
haven't
that
done
one for
number
a second?
5.
We just need to go back and complete item 5. We need to go address item 5 first.
Oh, sorry. I do apologise. I'm fairly new to this. Yes, sorry. The practical completion of the landscape demo. I do apologise. Committee is invited to note that both practical completion certificates and building control final certificate has been received for the redevelopment of the landscape depot, and a copy of the latter and the as-built drawings have been forwarded to the landlord. Lovely. Can we move on now, Clark?
I think that's a good idea, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, can I ask a quick question?
So no, that was.
That's a note.
Chair, can I ask a quick question?
It's a note, David.
I just wondered whether we can have a visit of the landscape depot, that's all.
I would suggest that you would take that up with Daniel.
Okay.
Sorry, going back to item 6. Landscape equipment vibration monitoring. Committee is invited to note again that the vibration monitoring system has been installed. All operatives have been trained. The system is proving effective in ensuring that operatives using the equipment stay within the recommended industry levels. So that sounds like a good idea anyway. Worth the money, I think.
Chair, through the chair, could I just ask Councillor Kendrick to confirm the exact point that he's just been able to join us, please?
Absolutely, through the chair, Dominic. I was here about 3 or 4 minutes after the start. I came just item 2 was finishing.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, can we move on to item 7 then? The Pyro store Old Brook Green redecoration stroke remedial works. Minute number 109/2/19. Committee is invited to note that further to obtaining in principle permission from the landlord to demolish the building and the investigation into its original construction, it has not been possible to progress this project due to the concentrating on high priority initiatives. Committee is further invited to consider how to fund the unbudgeted redevelopment of the building, with a possible suggestion that it be included as a future project proposal as per agenda item number 15. Tom, you got your hand raised?
No, we can't deal with that. I had my hand up for item number 6, but we're past that, so we can't go back to it now.
Okay, sorry about that. So does anyone wish to speak on this item 7 with regards? Brian?
Bring your hand down, then.
Brian, you got your hand up still.
I haven't. I've not touched anything.
Right, Chair, could I suggest that Councillor Greenwood maybe tries the opposite and puts his hand up and see if it then has the opposite effect?
Yeah, it's gone down now.
Chair, with no further discussion, I would suggest you move on to the next item, Chair.
Thank you. So item 8 then. Item 8, allotment site update. Committee is invited to note that both sites are fully let and that a significant number of residents have recently joined the waiting list. Committee is further invited to note that a small number of plots are not being fully cultivated due to the understandable personal circumstances of the lessees concerned. Anybody wish to speak? David?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of items I'd like to bring up. I did ask a question at a previous meeting about security on the allotments. Now, it was noted at full council in December, and it was noted in January this year that we will be taking some action on improving the security, i.e. we talked about metal gates. The other day it was dismissed out of hand, and I think, you know, if that's what was recorded in terms of when funds are available we will action it, then I'd like to see that, because obviously we had a report from the police concerning security there, and I'd like to see that if there is the monies available that we move on that. Also, I'd like to report that we've still got a leak on the Portaloo all round the pan. And the other thing is, I'd like to find out why we're putting different types of sheds up there, because we had an agreement that there'd be wood. We're getting metal sheds, and we're getting even gazebos being put up there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Tom, you wish to speak?
Yes, indeed. Chair, we are entitled to, I think it's almost 3 hectares of land from Milton Keynes Council to make into allotments. At that time when we were entitled to that, we were going to use it in Campbell Park itself, in the park, as a sanctuary garden. That was never taken up, and I would like to see us pursue and see if we can, in fact, get additional land. And you never say no to land anyway. But we are entitled to more land as a result of the building. The whole west end of Oldbrook and other places around the parish, we were entitled to, I think it was 3 hectares. Perhaps Dominic can remember that better. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Darren.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I expect the clerk will enlighten us on that. What I would like to say is, if we explore this and we ask the formal question, could we ensure that definitely, although the land is designated and it always has been as allotments, of course the fishery allotments don't exist. So therefore any land that we ask for, the fishery allotment site is not taken into consideration because it's landlocked. It will never be allotment because it was designated as that a long time ago before the landscape changed very dramatically.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Right, I think we've done that then. Item 9, the Springfield Centre disabled parking bay provision. Further to the withdrawal of Milton Keynes Council Fund to part finance the provision of disabled parking bays at the front of the Springfield Centre. Committee is invited to consider an alternative way of progressing the initiative. Anybody wish to speak? David?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very quick on that. It's something that we looked at, and then of course there was a talk of the new build. But because parking is a real problem there, and we actually own the Springfield meeting place, it would greatly assist when groups are down there that there is more parking available. We've got some land there that comes within our remit. It's grassed at the moment, and I would suggest that we go ahead and put these additional bays in. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I think, Brian, you've got your hand up.
This time I did.
Excellent.
Yes. Okay. You might think this sounds a little bit political, but I am disgusted by Milton Keynes Council not thinking about our disabled brethren. When you get the leader of the council coming out with rubbish this week about he will not withdraw parking charges and make it free because it will not help the shop because they must have their money in their coffers. I remember the days when it was free to park all around the centre, and I'm unrealistic to believe it will still happen now, but due consideration should be given to circumstances. And the circumstances in Springfield, as has been mentioned, are not very helpful for disabled people, and it should have had a lot more consideration considering what's gone on this week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're invited to consider, I assume that will be brought up at full council. Any considerations about trying to find funding?
Chair, could I?
Yes, Clark.
The whole point of putting the item back onto the agenda was really to get the committee thinking about where you're going to actually find some future funding for this initiative. It's not something that has previously had any funding allocated to it by ourselves. Now, the cost of the project is somewhere in the region of £9,000 plus VAT. So that's not anything that you're going to find just by scratching around within the existing budget. It doesn't exist. So if you're determined to go ahead with this project, you need to start thinking about this potentially again within the realms of a future project proposal to put into council.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Clark. When we looked at our overall expenditures and costings for last year, there were a number of projects that were either reduced or actually taken out of the proposals. So it is something, unless someone's got a firm idea of where and how this could be funded, I think it just needs to go back on the back burner for now.
Chair, sorry, Chair. I don't think it needs to necessarily be put on the back burner, but I think you can deal with it proactively at your next meeting by actually getting the costs all updated and actually with the potential to put, as I say, to put a project proposal into the next budget round for council to look at to see whether they can find an accommodation for it.
Okay, thank you for that, Clark. I'll take two more. I've got Darren and then David. Darren? Darren, you need to turn your mic on.
I'm sorry, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do remember the discussions that we had, and I do agree with what Brian says. There aren't enough disabled parking places. However, with regards to parking in general in Milton Keynes, while I share concern extra costs on people shopping in Milton Keynes, free parking, there is no free parking. There never has been, and there never will be. The parking is paid for by the people who live around the donut ring. Probably the people around the donut ring, but probably can least afford it within Milton Keynes. Free parking doesn't exist. The best things in life are free, and parking in central Milton Keynes is not on that list. Just like to point that out.
It
David,
was back in '87.
Chair, what I was going to say was two things. We own the building now, and as part of disability, I don't think we meet the act. Just one parking space, and I think that was in the days with Milton Keynes Council. We should move it forward. Also, because of the rents that we charge on the building, and we put them up very often, you know, in terms once a year, people are paying to hire the hall. So why can't we use some of that income to increase and improve the benefits for people who are using the hall? Thank you, Chair.
Through the chair, David, what income?
Rental.
There is no income.
There's rental.
We're currently about £15,000 down on income for the current financial year.
okay, can you put your hand down, David? Thank you. Right, moving on to item 10. Springfield Centre. The thermal stress window damage. I don't know if everyone is aware of this, but committee's invited to note that the crack in one of the panes of glass on the southern elevation of the building has been identified as being caused by thermal stress, and as such, the repair/replacement of the pane is not covered by either manufacturer's warranty or insurance cover. Committees are invited to note that measures have been implemented to minimise future thermal stress, and that investigations are being made regarding the application of a safety film to the window in both community centres. The film would stabilise the pane of glass in question and minimise the potential for user groups damaging the windows in the future. Can I just say something on that? I was in that building the other day for the Galacticos meeting with John and Terry. The actual crack isn't actually on the outside of either pane. It's a double glazed unit. It's cracked on the inner pane on the inside of the double glazed unit. But the process to go ahead with looking at putting a film over the top, so there is okay, but aesthetically it doesn't look very nice. So that's just my point of view on it. Brian, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I do. As someone, as you know, loosely involved in this industry, I like the cop out of thermal stress. It's basically, that's what it is. If the unit is it's less than 10 years old, isn't it? By a long way.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. And thermal stress, as they like to put it, can be caused by the way it's been fitted. So that is just a bit of a cop out. And I'm sorry, the insurance if the warranty doesn't cover it, as it's a commercial installation, and the glass itself may only be covered for a lot less than a standard warranty, certainly the insurance should cover it.
Clark?
I agree that it'd be nice if that were the case. Councillor Greenwood, it's out, as you say, it is a commercial fit and it's now outside of the warranty period, and we've checked with our insurers and they've confirmed that it's not covered by the policy. What I can tell you is that the Rationale, who are the window suppliers, they quoted, I believe, and I would stand to be corrected, I believe it was in the region of £2,500 to replace the said pane of glass. It's a 6-man lift to get it into situ. We've received a quote from a local supplier to essentially fit the same thing for £1,600. So clearly we can source it cheaper if we don't go directly to the supplier, to the original manufacturer.
Can I ask a question on that subject? Can I just ask a question on that? Is this rationale based in Bicester you were dealing with?
Through the chair, I don't know. It's just rationale as the national organisation.
Yeah, well, that's one of their main offices, and I do know the manager there.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take two more. Sorry, Darren.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Could I ask Councillor Greenwood or the clerk, through the chair, depending on who's best to answer it, the thermal stress, and we said about the film not being aesthetically pleasing. When some direct sunlight hits something, and in the very, very near vicinity is a fluorescent strip that's very, very similar to what's on fluorescent vests, will the heat as well as the light go to the fluorescent strip? And that might be an alternative. I know we don't want fluorescent strips or something fluorescent on the building, but if it looks better than films, that may be an option if it works.
I don't know who wishes to answer that, if anyone can.
I'll have a quick answer. It's possible. It depends whether it was properly taken in consideration as a size when it was first installed, because there are certain regulations they should adhere to, and if they've gone over that without telling us, then that's not a good way to work. But there you go.
Chair, I will keep this a very quick response, and it was just a comment that was made that in terms of a working practice, we have kept the blinds at the front of the building closed during the day and indeed at night, which it was, and Brian will no doubt come back with a comment on this, but in terms of us kind of going from a security point of view, it wasn't helpful for the fact that the blinds were actually down the whole time, and they were kind of in fact contributing to the whole overheating effect that was sitting there within the windows.
Right.
So there was a trap there, and a lot of hot air was building up. So that's why I say mitigation is now being taken to ensure that that doesn't happen again in the future.
Okay.
Okay, last one, Catherine.
Yeah, if it's not on our insurance now and we're having to replace the window, is there a possibility that we can put it onto the insurance or take out another one to cover it, because it's a lot of money if it happens again?
Chair, can I respond to that?
Yes, of course you can, Clark.
As I say, we have now taken measures to reduce the sort of like scenario that we believe contributed towards it. So that's one thing. The reality is that if you were trying to take out an insurance policy against something that was known to be a risk, you would then pay a very high insurance policy, because the insurer would go into that in the knowledge that there would be a reasonable chance that they would have to pay out, and because there's a chance that something else might happen. So I think what you would find, Catherine, is that cost would be equally prohibitive to take out, because at that point you would have to declare that you'd already experienced a problem with that issue.
Okay, fair enough.
Right. I'll take one more Turbo, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you, Chair. Dominic, on what you just said now, I think I have a bit of disagreement on that. Everything that we insure it if anything happens. In this case, we are not insuring it just because it has been a current situation. All we need to ask is if there's any insurance that could cover such thing if it happens in future. It might not happen in future. It's just getting us secured like every other insurance we have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've give that a good airing. So we move on to item 11, which is Milton Keynes Council Community Asset Transfer Scheme, potential future transfers. Committee is invited to consider and, if appropriate, recommend to Council further acquisition sites through the Milton Keynes Community Asset Transfer Scheme. Potential sites to include the parish office, the play area by Fishermead Sports Ground, Fishermead Community Garden, and Fishermead Landscape Depot and associated outside space. David, do you wish to speak on this?
Yes, Chief. Yes.
David, you need to put your mic on.
Can't hear you, David.
Is it working now?
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. I don't know why we're considering some of these areas. It concerns me that we're looking at the Fishermead Community Garden, the Fishermead Landscape Depot. I mean, surely some of those areas are the responsibility of the people who have got the Trinity Centre. So why are we trying to get involved? We already just said we've got very little revenue coming in, and yet we're taking these on. And as I say, I wouldn't like us to take on another play area until we sort out the one in Woolstone, and that's another item that's coming up on the agenda. But also to the fact is that every time we take one on, like the Pirate Park, Milton Keynes Council just come back and dismiss the parish office, and I think we've got to take a hard line on this, you know. And it's one of the things that perhaps we ought to talk about at one of these meetings, about realistically talking about a parish office, because if we've got no money in the kitty, why aren't we looking at staying where we are if we're doing all this working from home with the staff? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Elaine? Elaine?
Sorry. I was just wondering where the Fishermead Community Garden is. Is that the one that's next to the Trinity Centre? Or is there another one I don't know about?
I'm not fully sure. Can anyone answer that?
Correct.
The one next to the centre.
That's correct, Elaine.
I think we should take that, because I think it's a mess, and I think we should. It would be a great little development for us as our community project. But that's my thoughts. But
okay. Tubo.
Thank you, Chair. I kind of want to align myself to what Elaine just said, especially that one behind our yard there. We really need it in case we need to develop that in future, as be able to maintain it. However, these assets transfer things seem to be coming in bits. First, the last one we had was the play area in Fishermead there, the Pirate Park, and not just of them. Now, sports grounds and other areas are around. I'll probably be thinking that can we lump all this together and see if we can make them a one item for the Milton Keynes Council to look into, and instead of us coming into them every day. Thank you.
Okay, Darren.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree totally with what Elaine says. I think we do a great service for the community. It would be a wonderful little project behind the Community Centre Garden. You may get that confused about the Rose Garden. The Rose Garden does already belong to the Campbell Parish Council. Part of, or it's on the same land. It's not part of, but it's on the same land as the Parish Park. I think the assets that we've taken over, I think they've been very, very good. Unfortunately, Tubo, cats don't work like that. It's got to be done individually as and when Milton Keynes Council put it up for tender or a request has been put in. And it's got to be taken as individual land. I'd like to say thank you to perhaps the play park, the brand already. And can I just reiterate again to members that Fishermead Sports Ground it's Setclow Park. It's not Fishermead Sports Ground. It doesn't belong to Fishermead. It never has done, and it never will do. It belongs to Campbell Park Parish Council, and it's Fishermead. because that's the location. Yeah? It's not for fishery. It's not exclusively for fishery or part thereof. It's for the whole parish. Thank you.
Okay. Dominic, you've had your hand up. Do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Baines just wanted me to say to the committee that he again apologises for not being able to join the committee tonight, and clearly, as you will know from previous meetings, it was him that himself was very keen that this item was put on the agenda tonight. So he apologises he's not here to be able to discuss it. I think the one thing that Councillor Baines stressed was that, bearing in mind the comments that the likes of David and that have made this evening, that essentially that we would be looking to take on assets that really were going to be cost neutral to us, and ones that weren't going to have a lot of associated development costs with them. In terms of specifically the Fishermead Community Centre, committee should be aware that the Trinity Centre is at a reasonably advanced stage of a CAT transfer itself with the existing management structure there. The community garden at the side, as I understand it, there is a leased agreement with the management structure there. So if that all goes ahead, there's every possibility that when it completes, that land will also go over to the Trinity Centre as well. So that's something that may not be even possible. However, Councillor Baines was keen to, as I say, that the idea that if it were possible to obtain sites without an immediate development cost, that council gives some consideration to it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Tom.
Thank you, Chair. Two small points. I think one of the things that we should have tried to do, I advanced as an idea some time ago, was to put the Bath store on our asset register, because that would give us 6 months with an embargo to be sold to us. I think we're too late now to do that with the Bath store. The other thing was that community garden. The community garden was a lovely place. People came out the shop, they sat on the wooden benches, and there was nobody toys for the children. It was taken over by whoever, and they have made a complete and utter, well, it's just a mess. And we should be endeavouring to take that over as a parish and re-establish it back to what it was about 10, 15 years ago, because it was then fully in use by the public. Now, the public don't have access to it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Catherine.
Yeah, if I remember rightly, the play area over at Fishermead by the sports field, we've talked about that on many meetings over the last year, on taking it on to use that piece of land. So I can't see why people are saying that they don't think it's worth going into it when we've already discussed it several times.
Okay, thank you. Who else is up there? Elaine?
Sorry, about the play area and Fishermead, I think we should have that, because we get to have a look at it when there was a lot of trouble with young people and drugs and things like that around the bottom end of that park, and we said we could do with taking that over and sorting out, either taking the play area away or making a pavilion or doing something that would help Galacticos with the football. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to take two more, and then someone either needs to put a proposal together that we recommend to council, or we just move on. Tubo, you need to turn your mic on.
Thank you, Chair. Ever so sorry that I'm saying something again. If I recollect, are we talking about the garden in front of the co-op?
Yes, the one that's attached to the Trinity Centre, I assume.
I Actually, I don't know whether any of you is aware. You know, there is a post box there, and that post box has been blocked.
Yeah, I understand that, but that has nothing to do with what we're discussing at the moment. It's been blocked off for a long while, but we're talking about community assets. So,
well, we are talking about community. I am aware. You see, if you come to a shopping mall, if there's amenities there, people use them. If there's no amenities there, it then means some of the things we want to ask there will not be used. So apart from the shop and the church, the Trinity Center, people probably will be diverting their attention somewhere else. If the post office is there or something else, it will also attract few other people. I want to know why it was blocked. I don't know why it was blocked. I'm not saying it should be open. I'm only saying it for saying.
That'll be a discussion with the post office as to why that post box has been blocked off. So, right, there's a number of you with your hands up again, but you've all spoken. So unless someone wishes, if someone wants to put a proposal together,
can I do that?
If you wish to, Catherine.
Right.
Chair, I got my hand up. I was waiting to speak.
You've spoken already, David.
Well, so was Tubo.
Yes.
Can I make a proposal that we do look into taking on the parish office, the play area down at Fisherman Sports Ground, and to put the landscaping depot associated outside space as not so much as a priority as the other two items?
Can I second that, Chair, and reserve the right, please?
You wish to second that? Who was that? Sorry.
Reserve the right to speak.
Sorry, I didn't catch who was speaking.
Oh, sorry. I'll formally second the proposal by Catherine, and I reserve the right to speak as and when the chair decides I should be brought in before we vote on it.
Okay, thank you, Darren. Clark,
Chair, could I just ask Catherine to clarify that? I fully understand that she's asking that we take on the parish office and play area. I was less clear in terms of what the proposal was relating to depot.
The depot landscape associated outside space to be at the bottom of the list, but not so much priority as the other two.
Thank you.
So we've got a proposal and a seconder. So does anyone? If nobody wishes to put in a secondary proposal, or can we go to a vote, please?
Just a couple of points of information, Chair.
Sorry, I can't hear.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think somebody else has got their mic open as well. Just a couple of points of information, Chair.
Thanks, Darren.
Yeah, with regards to the post box, I don't know what the official line on it is, but the unofficial line on it, or the less PR version of it, is the fact that it wasn't economical to have one there. Personally, I've not used this since I was in my middle 20s. The simple reason is people used to try and set fire to what was in there. They used to put condoms and dog refuse and God knows what else through the slot. And so I think it was probably taken out of use because of lack of use, because people were being inappropriate. With regards to the Trinity Garden, we have also got a problem in the moment. We have homeless people, we have drug taking, we have prostitution, and all kinds of things going on in there. So I think the community would love us to take that on. With regards to the campaign for the Trinity Centre, I'm not too sure that's going to go ahead, Chair, because I keep asking the question, and people keep dodging the bullet, but I don't think the Trinity Centre has the funds to open up in September, let alone take on any responsibilities with the crack transfer. I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't.
Okay, thank you for that. So we'll go to the vote. What I'll do is I'll call the names out one at a time.
Chair, you did ask if anyone had an alternative proposal.
Sorry, David. Yeah, speak, David.
Thank you, Chair. Well, in terms of what Catherine said, I would like to get clarification reference the community garden, if that's part of the lease to the Trinity Centre, and also if the landscape depot is one I'm thinking of, that's already with the Wolfton Parish Council, if I'm correctly right, and they declined to do any work because of the question mark about doing it up was over 30,000 because of the poor state it was in, if that's the correct one. So I think those ones have to come out of this this voting. Thank you, Chair.
It's not in it.
Okay, thank you. Right.
For information, Chair, I disagree with what David says partly. The simple reason is that at the moment, the land that the Trinity Centre at Garden sits on belongs to Milton Keynes Council and the people as a legacy from the Development Corporation. The Trinity Centre are the current tenants or leaseholders. It does not form part of the plans or the deeds of the property. That would happen as and when the PAT transfer comes through, which I don't think is going to happen. One of the buildings behind the big building behind the community centre has actually got Campbell Park Parish Council stuff in it. It doesn't belong to Campbell Park Parish Council. It doesn't belong to Wolfton either. It belongs to Milton Keynes Council as and when it goes to a CAT. We just have a stand-in, put our paperwork in one of those units behind there, just like Wolfton have Council for their landscaping. Ditto with the Trinity Centre or the new Bancroft Trinity Centre has with the community garden.
Okay. I'm as chair, I'm going to bring this discussion to a close because I think we're trying to drill down too deeply into the detail. What we need to understand, what the vote was about the transfer of a number of assets that were highlighted. Catherine had put a proposal together to look at the possibility of transferring those in. There's no guarantee that even if it goes to full council that they're going to be transferred in, because we don't know the background behind them and so on and so forth. So that will be down for investigation once full council, if they make a decision to take these transfer assets forward. So going back to what Catherine Clark, sorry, can you just confirm, or Catherine, can you just confirm again what the proposal was? So before we go to the vote.
Right. My proposal was that we look at taking on the parish office, the play area by Fishermead Sports Ground, and the landscape depot associated outside space go to the bottom of the list and not be a priority as yet.
Okay, does everybody understand that? Okay, thank you. Right, so we go to the vote. So I'll go through the list here. Elaine DeSubo. Elaine, you need to put your mic on.
I'm abstaining because I want the community garden in there as well. So.
Okay. Tom Fraser.
Or.
Thank you. I vote for. Councillor Greenwood. Councillor Greenwood, can you...
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Carrera. Sorry, Carl.
4.
4, thank you. Councillor Kendrick.
I would have been for, Chair, but I'm going to have to abstain for the same reasons as Councillor DeServo.
Thank you. Councillor Kent.
4.
Councillor Pafford.
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Uranta.
4.
The motion's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much, Clark. All right, moving on.
Jesus.
Item 12. Milton Keynes Council Community Infrastructure Fund, the CIF. 2020/2022 award confirmation on page 11. Committee is invited to note that the Parish Council has been awarded £20,000 through the above scheme, the award will be required matched funding from the parish council and must be completed by March 2020, with the work relating to Carroll Crescent Play Park and Patterson Lane Play Area, Wallstone. Committee is further invited to note that in line with their terms of reference, the Community and Social Wellbeing Committee will carry out the required public consultations, and the Buildings and Property Portfolio Committee then responsible for the project delivery. Anybody wish to speak? Elaine?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Oh. Sorry. Right,
Point
sorry.
of order, Chair. Point of
I
order,
think-
Chair, please.
Sorry, through the chair.
Yeah,
Point of
sorry. Hang on.
Point of order, please.
Yeah, go on.
Point of order. Does it not say, invited with the terms of reference, that the Community and Social Wellbeing Committee will do the consultations and we follow on from there? So it's not really for us to discuss.
Well, it's a note.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is a note. From a perspective, that is a point of, yeah. So
Okay.
I think we should just move on, because we haven't had anything. I haven't seen anything come back from Community and Social Wellbeing Committee regarding this.
We've not seen it. We didn't know about it. Sorry.
So can we just note that and move on then, please?
Chair, you have a point of order. You've got to have a vote on it.
Chair,
Okay.
I think Councillor Greenwood was making a point of information rather than a point of
Oh.
order.
Okay.
Can I ask it to put back on the community and wellbeing agenda, Chair, for the next meeting?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That Chair, I can confirm that I will do that. Clearly, this is something that we've just received notification on. We have the best part of 2 years to deliver, so yes, it will go to the next CSW meeting.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Clark. So we move on to item 13 then. Fishermead Sports Ground Service Level Agreement. Periodic review arrangements for 2020/2021 football season. Committee is invited to note the requirement to carry out a periodic review of its SLA with MK Galacticos for the use of Fishermead Sports Ground. As per the existing SLA, MK Galacticos have been contacted and invited to invite their comments and potential changes, amendments to the agreement, with any suggestions considered at a future committee meeting as part of the above process. The meeting with officials from the club has been requested and agreed arrangements for 2020 and 21 football season. I can shed some light on this. There has been a meeting with them, which was taken on the 3rd of the 7th. So basically, it was just to review the whole of the service level agreement. To be honest, I was a little bit surprised as chair of buildings that the document that was in front of me was last actually, well, stated that it showed 2015, but my understanding is that there has been reviews, but not necessarily the documentation was appropriately updated, or at least a record that it had been reviewed on a yearly basis. So I think I've spoken to Clark that as a committee we should be aware of what service level agreements we have sitting within council, and that we should have at least a list of times and of when we should be reviewing them, and when they should be reviewed, and check that they are reviewed and updated accordingly to ensure that we meet our requirements as part of that service level agreement. With regards to that, moving on, there was nothing that really came out of the meeting that has any major effect on us. The service level agreement was pretty much sound as it was. MK Galacticos have highlighted that they are about to start retraining in small groups. They've been asked by CPPC that they carry out their training at the present time up at the top end where the rugby posts are, because of there's still a lot of work to be done on the actual field itself. And to be honest, the grass hasn't been cut as well as it should be on the grounds that we didn't want people using it anyway. So they've accepted that. There was some chat about 4G pitches, which was a little bit over my head. I assume there's some sort of all-weather type pitch, but as soon as someone quoted 750,000, I just switched off today. One of the good things that did come out of it from Galacticos, though, was the under 9/10s pitch goalposts. The Galacticos themselves are going to try and look for some funding through the Football Association to possibly buy a set or sets of them, which is an average cost of £700, and they would be of the new anti-vandal type posts. So that's what's come out of that. We were asked by the Galacticos, though, to think about any other areas within the parish that may be available for use for training and purposes and so on and so forth. I said that Terry was at that meeting as well. We said that we would go away and have a look at it as such, but in theory, we believe at this point in time that there are no other areas within the parish that are suitable for the type of use that they want to use them for. So that was just a quick overview from that meeting. Anybody wish to speak? Elaine?
Yeah, point of information again.
Yeah.
Point of information. It's very difficult to tie anything down, even with Galacticos at this moment, because certainly at that level, let alone at professional level, there's no idea when the new season will start. And that certainly definitely applies at local level. There may even be some of the leagues that the kids play in will not start at all until the following season.
That was mentioned, Brian, and that's why, to be honest, we weren't too concerned about the grass cutting, but they just wanted to try and get some form of training going for the youngsters again. That's why we suggested up by the rugby posts. Okay. So, Elaine, you wish to speak?
I was just thinking about Willen, if they need some space to play. And we've also got, Old Brook Green, we've also got that, as a wee football area that you could play there, couldn't you, for training purposes?
My understanding, and I'm sure the clerk and some of the more established, my understanding is that ground is not a sports area anymore, and that there is signage all around Old Brook Green that identifies that it cannot be used for those type of sports.
Absolutely.
Okay. What about Willen then? What about the Willen over at the pavilion?
We don't own that.
I'll let David answer. David obviously knows that area. David, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I was going to come back on that, because when you said earlier about no other facilities in the parish, there is obviously Willen football and cricket. But what I would say is that we've already got the footballers training there, and that's another club that maintains the ground. So I don't think at this moment in time there'll be any spare space over there, because there was a limit on about how many parts of the ground that we can actually use, and that's currently being used in an evening. I would also say, though, that before any football training's been undertaken, we've had a proper full risk assessment from the club. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Anybody else wish to speak?
Can I speak?
Oh, sorry, Catherine, I didn't see your hand up.
Yeah. Just to go back to the Old Brook Green, I'm afraid the Old Brook Green has got a lot of holes in it. So running around on it is really out of the picture. You can't play sports on it whatsoever. I fall down and twist my ankles many a time just walking across it. Okay.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? Oh, sorry, Darren.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, Willem would be very difficult. There's nothing to stop, if by prior arrangement, for Galacticos to train on the Old Brook Green. What the caveat is that... Oh, yeah, can I just finish, please, Catherine? The caveat is the activity that's carried out on there doesn't affect the public are doing on there, and there are no ball activities going on. So, i.e., they can do exercises on there, they can run and jump up on the spot, they can run up and down, etc., etc., but not in an area where the public are, and not with the ball. It's strictly fitness training. That's why the outdoor gym is where it is as well.
Can I just come back to that, please, Chair?
Yeah, quickly then, Catherine.
Since the lockdown, Old Brook Green is full of families. There's no way you can get people on there playing football or doing training. When I say full of families, because they can't use the play areas until now, they've been filling up the green with picnics. So you can't use it for football. Sorry, I'd be hung when I go over there walking the dog.
Okay. So
nobody's suggesting football, they're suggesting fitness. I mean, if we're saying that no one can do any fitness in there, why do we spend thousands and thousands of pounds on a blanket serenade, having the great and the good, including Pink Winkman, as the Old Brook Green a couple of years ago, for gym equipment? That is fitness, Chair. And I can see people and football.
Right, ladies and gentlemen,
Get off the subject.
You're going off subject slightly. I understand what you're saying, Darren, about training. You don't need footballs. It can be exercise and so on and so forth. Also understand what you're saying, Catherine. But that at the moment, what we've said to Galacticos, at this point in time, we said we would go away and look at it. But we've said to them at that meeting that there was nowhere. So that's where it's at. Tom?
Thank you, Chair. In actual fact, the Old Brook Green is being used for the next 4 weeks for training, simply running back and forwards to keep the children exercised, so that when training, their field opens, which is closed at the moment, they will be fit and ready to play. And I see no reason why people cannot go onto the green and run 50 yards, come back, run back 50 yards, observing spacing, and three people at a time running up and down. They were on there this evening, and they've got licensed instructors there carrying out the training. I see no reason why they cannot do that sort of training on the Old Brook Green.
I think people are going mad.
Okay, fine. It was only the actual item itself was invited to be noted that the actual SLA had been done. So I'd like to move on now, if possible. Can we move on to item 14?
Yeah, can I just ask a question?
Yes, David.
Yeah, this whole thing about the sounds breaking up, we need to look at this, because half the time I think when Darren's talking, it's coming up and then it's going down. We need to be a bit more efficient in terms of how this is working. Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 14. Community centre plans for the resumption of community centre use on page 13. Committee is invited to note the new COVID-19 guidance has been issued for the safe use of multi-purpose community facilities and community centres. Committee is invited to consider the guidance and then identify a pathway to the reopening of the Old Brook and Springfield centres. Options for reopening include managing exercising the discretion to remain closed if they are not able to safely follow the advice in the relevant guidance to make the facilities COVID-19 secure. Committee is invited to note that whichever pathway is chosen, a phased reopening will be necessary to ensure the safety of staff and users. I assume everyone has read that document.
Yeah.
It's quite intense. And to me, my personal opinion is I think it was very informative and made it quite clear to me how I think I would be looking at going forward. But does anyone wish to speak? Elaine? Elaine, you wish to speak? You need to put your mic, that's it.
Chair, Elaine's taking a hand down.
Oh, taking a hand down. Sorry. Catherine, you wish to speak?
Yeah, as I read through this document, I got rather confused about which choice to go for because it seemed very broken. Paragraph saying one thing and then you go to another choice, and I found it very confusing.
Okay.
I don't think I could make a decision on what I've read.
Okay, anyone else wish to? Tubo, you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just looking at this as well. We will all understand that since this pandemic started, we've been short of anything but no fund from the hiring of the halls and things. I don't know whether it is up to us to induce a condition of hiring into people apart from opening and closing or asking them what they will want to do in the hall. I thought it is up to the people who are trying to hire it to submit to us an application and some form of risk assessment, if any, than for us to dish out a condition before hiring a hall. It will only, restrict people using it. That's my thinking. We wanted to open it to them and only reject them if we feel it is unsafe than us starting the process. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Dominic, you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd have to say that I agree with Catherine. I find this document, along with the constantly evolving regulations, guidelines, legislation that sits alongside it, something that changes on almost a daily basis. Your primary concern through all of this must be as your duty as employers to your staff, first and foremost. That is what you have to ensure the safety of. That's your number one priority. Realistically, you do have to find a way, if it's appropriate to do so, to find a way of, in a phased way, reopening these centres. As David has alluded to over at Willen, they're using an outside space. It's in reduced numbers, and the user group themselves have had to submit a detailed risk assessment that the management committee have got to be in agreement with. I think that we're dealing with potentially a totally different environment as an indoor venue rather than an outdoor playing field, with many factors involved, and potentially lots of different user groups who will have different uses of the building. Now, as Tubo has alluded to, yes, it's down to the individual user groups to submit a risk assessment for what it is that they will be doing. I think that the the limitations that are actually put still currently on the use of the centres would actually make it unattractive for the vast majority of our user groups to actually want to use it, because we're still looking at a limitation of 2 households.
Yeah.
So you know, we've got groups that come together that have got many different households from them. There are all sorts of issues around data protection and the ability of user groups to be able to hold that information. So I would like to ask the committee to think very carefully about how you're going to navigate this route back. Now, we're currently in a situation nationally where, thankfully, the trend is going in a negative direction. We're going in a downward direction in terms of the daily amount of infections and everything that is involved with it. But we don't know whether that will continue to be the case. Hopefully, it will be. Now, quite clearly, with the beginning of September, we will see the proposed full return to school educational settings across the UK. And there was existing legislation in place from the 1st of June that permits the return of preschools. I'd like to think that potentially we could look to actually work with some of those people that I would regard as professional groups that are used to working within regulations such as Ofsted frameworks, etc., to be able to deliver a proper professional risk assessment where we can start a phased return to the use of the centres, and then just take a periodic review as to whether we think we can start to get more people back in the centres. I think it would be an absolute disaster if you just said in the beginning of September, OK, let's return to normal, because I think it would be an unmitigated disaster.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Clark. I'd like to speak before I can see Catherine and Darren have got their hand up. I'd just like to. The driver for me, I totally agree with what Clark has said and what you other guys have said. But what sort of brought it home to me was 3C about recreation, leisure, and social gatherings, and the premises of COVID-19 secure with more than 30 people. I've just taken the assumption that Oldbrook and Springfield can hold more than 30 people, and then it goes on to say, so in groups no larger than 2 households or 6 people from in an outdoors environment. And I think that sort of answers 90% of the questions. We can't deal with that. And how at this point in time would we as a committee and be able to manage it? I totally agree with the clerk that I think this is so intense and a minefield that we're going to need some form of at least professional input or help along the way about how we face this. I think it's pretty well known to us as CPPC and as a committee that the young infants or the young children's play schools that run in each of these are not going to be back in the building until September. So I think we should be taking the rest of July and August to get our houses in order, or our house in order, before we even think about potentially opening in September. So that's just my thoughts. So Darren?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do fully agree with what Dominic said. It sounds a sensible way forward, Chair. I was going to turn around and say, let's use this time between now and September to get our houses in order. We do need to be very, very careful with regards to opening these. But having said that, where is the line? When are we going to turn around and say, well, at this point, it's okay, and at that point, no, it's not okay, because even Whitehall are having problems from that at the moment. What I would turn around and say to people, and Dominic partly alluded to it, is that the preschools are going back, and in September, you're not just going to be having selected years of middle schools or primary schools opening. It's going to be all years of all primary schools and all years of secondary pupils. So therefore, if the cat's going to come out the bag, the cat will be coming back long before anyone decided to go to the Springfield Initiative, Pumping Beans, or anywhere else. Because if there's anything to be had, the secondary schools are bringing it home.
Thank you. Catherine?
Yeah, I'd like to say that my daughter runs a preschool, but the training that she's had to get the preschool back up and running varies from one community centre to another. You will not get them same. What she suggested to me was to try and persuade the parish council to put together a small team of people to just spend a couple of months looking at that one issue. Because it's no good us all walking away from here and saying, oh, we'll just think about it, we'll read it, we'll go and look. We need a group of people that's going to look at it seriously, ready for going back in September.
That makes sense to me. Thank you. David?
Thank you, Chair. A couple of points. Dominic touched on the open space. I was only commenting on open space because we were talking about football. But both Woolstone and Willen have had their preschool groups in.
Yeah.
We've been in there for several weeks now, but the arrangement that we've made with them is that they are the sole user, and therefore they are responsible for the cleaning and the upkeep of the building inside, so no one else goes in there while they're running their sessions. And as previously said by Dominic, about funding, I think, consideration ought to be given about when we can open our centres up because of the loss of revenue. And even if it means we only have a sole user in there, it means you then can control who's going in and who's going out while they're running the building. We don't go in the centre at all during the week while our preschool group's in there. And they've been running. And one of the things about it is, of course, the fact that they are currently running is going to help when September comes, that they can get new members on board. Thank you.
Okay. Dominic?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity just to give you some more information. David and I are definitely on the same page as far as this one is concerned. As part of that controlled return, we've had a message today indirectly that Ducklings would like to return to our centres at the week commencing the 7th of September. Now, John has already carried out a COVID-19 generic risk assessment of the centres themselves. So the next step would be to work with a potential user group, and I'm sure David, in his involvement in Willen and Woolstone, would have there would have been a further risk assessment relating to that specific group. So I think that the way that both Willen and Woolstone are operating is entirely sensible, that you work with essentially what is one user group in each of the centres. They happen to be our most commercially positive booking. And then that as a committee, when you next meet in September, you review how those initial arrangements have worked out, and then make a further decision about as and when you then may add further users back into the system.
Okay, thank you. Darren?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I fully agree with what Dominic said, and I think sort of like we're in a better position than what schools or the likes of a supermarket are in regards to what we'd like you to do and what we'd like not for you to do. And I'd like to see, as part of the reopening process, is that individual professional group, if they're not in there already, or including them, that there's some kind of agreement that for as long as it's a concern to society or the government, call them what you will, with regards to COVID, they will work with us for the cleaning, one-way systems, etc., etc. And if they can't work with us on that, then it will mean that they will have to be suspended from usage. I think that will make them more likely to work with us and less likely to put more emphasis on the parish council if there are any concerns.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Okay, I think the consensus is that I think the way forward is to deal with our two main, if you like, users of our centres at Springfield and Oldbrook, to work with them to come up with a way forward to ensure that at least they can start to use as lone users of that building and carry on with the risk assessments and look through and then take it one step at a time. I don't know if anyone has any other feeling. The only thing I'm not sure about, Clark, is how this gets driven. Who's going to drive it?
In terms of we've had an ongoing We've had an ongoing dialogue with Ducklings to try and understand when they would potentially return. They in late June they just quickly said, would it be possible to restart at the beginning of July? However, before we even had an opportunity to answer that, they disappeared again and said, no, it's definitely going to be September. As I say, it's down to us to carry out the generic COVID-19 assessment of the centre. It's down to them to provide us with their risk assessment of how they intend to work. We will not go ahead until we sign it off, though.
Okay, so it sounds like to me that with regards internally, that would be someone like John.
Absolutely.
And then Duckley. So would the clerk would need to inform if they're not already aware that they needed to provide us with an in-depth risk assessment prior to them being allowed back in?
Indeed, they've already carried out their risk assessment, their main risk assessment. That needs to be tailored to the centres themselves. John has informed them that he requires a notice period and a site meeting a minimum of a fortnight before any proposed start date, so that it could be agreed, and if there are any measures that need adapting, that those measures can be put into place.
Okay, and we're again, just for clarification, John will review their risk assessments and make any recommendations prior to it coming back to committee?
Correct.
Okay, because it's just jumped in through my thought process is that we actually, as a committee, will not be meeting in August. Our first meeting back is, I think, the 8th of September.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're looking to start up, we need to be letting them know that we're even if that's reviewed, it's not going to come back to committee till the 8th unless there's an extraordinary meeting held beforehand.
Don't forget that going way back to March now, that this committee gave me delegated powers to deal with those things that need doing. I've still got the confidence, unless I'm told otherwise, of council to do that. I've got full confidence in John that he will work on for the best benefit of council, and that will not get signed off until such time that document is complete and in our best interests.
Okay, can I just make a suggestion then that something's put on council minutes for us to just confirm with regards to your delegated.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
Chair,
I think,
as per normal, through the chair, as per normal, the items that need to be either ratified or noted by council will be sort of like teased out and put into the council meeting for next week.
Lovely, thank you very much, Clark. Darren, you wish to say something?
Yes, just to say, Chair, that absolutely full confidence in the chair and full confidence chair in the clerk and in John McClinton as well. Absolutely. But first class performance at every time, and they look after everybody's interests to make sure. If we wanted to do anything or have anything noted or anything after July Council, the last committee to meet before the summer recess, apart from planning, which there is no recess on, those who have summer recesses, the last committee will be community wellbeing. So there will be the facility there to have things noted after the next full council, if we so wish.
Lovely, thank you, Darren. Carl, did you have I know you didn't have a hand up because I think your machine's playing up. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, mate, you're all right.
All right, lovely, thank you.
No, you're all right. It's taking so long.
Yeah. Okay, so we move on then to item 15, project committee budgets 2021-22, 2022-23, 23-24, 24-25, 25-26. Page 23. Committees invited to note that project proposals for the next 5 years need to be submitted by the end of October 2020. All project proposals must comply with the budget policy. The project policy be detailed on a project request form, including full costings and breakdown and expenditure. In the first instance, completed project proposals will be considered at the September meeting. Project proposals are not required if they are existing budgeted cost codes. All cost codes will be reviewed as part of the annual council budget process. Anybody wish to speak? I've actually got one question. I think that someone might be able to help me with an answer. Is I get totally confused with the pyro store and the pump room at Old Brook Green.
What on the same chair?
The only concern was that it was raised by Terry, I think, at one of the committee meetings with regards to pump room. He wanted to have a look at the possibility of removing it and putting a piece of exercising equipment. I assume the pump room is the smallest of the buildings around Old Brook Green.
Chair, that's correct.
Right, thank you. I'll need to speak to Terry regarding that then. Okay, nobody wishes to speak on item 15? Oh, Tom, sorry.
Yeah, the building you're talking about was originally a pump room for the sewage because Old Brook was below the general height of the rest of the city. And effluents had to be pumped up. When the system was updated, that room was taken over by radio rentals. And they used the three-phase system. I know it's all hysterical almost, but
there's not many people remember rentals.
Okay, lovely. Thanks for that, Tom. Okay, the next item is a confidential item. So, in view of the terms of the Schedule 12A Local Government Act 1972, the following item will be likely to disclose exempt information relating to establishment and contractual matters, and committee is therefore invited that for certain of the province of the Public Bodies Administrations to Meetings Act 1960, the public and press be excluded. Item 16. Clerk.
The